Now let's get back to federal politics and the battle for the Liberal leadership we know is heating up. Susan Lee will officially has officially thrown her hat into the ring. Dan Tehan from Western Victoria has bowed out. And there's been an announcement, of course, that Jacinta Nampijinpa Price has defected from the Nationals to the Liberals. Some expectation she will run as a deputy with Angus Taylor. Now, the Nationals are not happy with her decision to defect, and we spoke to Matt Canavan before about his challenge to David Littleproud that'll happen on Monday. It's happening all around the place, and you're not surprised because of the scale of the loss on the weekend. Joining me now, our Friday regular, former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman. Where do we start, Campbell? Let's start with Matt Canavan. What do you make of him suddenly deciding today? And he said he's only just made the decision to take on the challenge of trying to lead the Nats.
Fantastic, Steve. Absolutely fantastic. I hope he gets up. And I should say, I hope me backing him isn't a kiss of death or anything like that. Because, look, Matt Canavan is so articulate, is so focused, so determined. He has, over the last few years, demonstrated time and time again that he can effectively prosecute the issues of concern, particularly to people in rural and regional Australia. So I'm sorry, David Littleproud, but he does a much better job than you've been able to do in the same period. And I hope he gets up because I think he will be terrific. And the National Party need to have their own particular voice.
He's released a statement online. I urge everybody to have a look at it because what he's done is he's nailed in about 20 paragraphs what the coalition, both the Nats and the Liberal Party, Campbell, should have been arguing about during the election campaign. They wouldn't see themselves in the position they are in right now. He talks about jobs, closing down
and he's dead right.
Gold mines and, trashing live sheep exports. I mean, why weren't they doing that?
Well, that's the extraordinary thing about it. And, by the way, just looking at the result in Queensland, the primary vote was 35%. The primary vote was 35%. Now, that plumbs the depths, if you like, of the whole situation and, demonstrates the rusted-on LNP vote in this state. The worst results in state elections, sort of 2017, I think it was about 33, 34. And then in 2020, it was about 35 again. So that shows you how low it can possibly go. And it should have a 4 in front of it. So, something has to happen. And I just think Canavan is just such an effective voice and such a relentless, determined, hard worker. So I hope he gets up.
How surprised were you Saturday night when Dixon fell?
I was surprised. Viewers of this program would know that I felt that Peter Dutton would hang in there. I've been searching for what may have caused that, and I think one of probably the biggest explanations was, well, there's two parts to it. One, just the relentless character demolition by the Labor Party. That was very effective, and we talked about that. But I think the other factor might have been the local thing was that the way that the Labor Party said, well, while the cyclone was bearing down on southeast Queensland, he went for a fundraiser in Sydney. I hadn't really taken as much attention to that as I perhaps should have, but I think on the ground it sounds like that had some real bite. And I'm really sorry because, Peter Dutton is a terrific bloke and he's going to wear a lot of or most of the criticism going forward. And, there are plenty of other people who need to take responsibility for what's just happened.
Brisbane voters did the right thing by us. They ran a couple of Greens out of town, which was all good news for everybody.
There was that's another one I sort of got wrong a bit, Steve. I think, just to recap, I think I predicted to you that the Brisbane would go to Labor or perhaps the LNP, but it went to Labor, which, I'll claim that one. I felt that Max Chandler Mather would hang in there, but it was great to see him gone because he had probably some of the most dangerous and seductive policy ideas, particularly for our young people, repackaging old discredited policy as new wonderful stuff in new bottles. And Elizabeth Watson-Brown is the great surprise. That what I really thought the LNP would reclaim. So I can only claim 1 out of 3, really, Steve.
Susan Lee wants to lead the Liberal Party. She'll go up against Angus Taylor. Here's Susan Lee saying why she should get the job.
I've listened. We got it wrong. We need to do things differently going forward, and we do need a fresh approach.
Who do you reckon wins that contest?
Gee, I don't know, Steve. I don't really know the dynamics of the party room. I guess I felt that Angus Taylor didn't play a big enough role in the campaign, and particularly, that you'd expect someone like the Treasurer to really be going relentlessly the Shadow Treasurer going relentlessly after Jim Chalmers as the Treasurer. So I wasn't really impressed with that. But with Susan Lee, I've got a personal axe to grind. My government had a high-value agricultural project on Cape York that was to provide jobs and economic opportunity for Aboriginal people. And as Federal Minister for Environment in a coalition government in the last 10 years, she listened to the bureaucrats in Canberra and scotched it on environmental grounds. And I mean, if we want to run Aboriginal communities in remote areas as just sort of, disadvantaged welfare communities, well, go right ahead, Susan. And she's never had the guts to pick up the phone and talk to me about that and explain herself. I also point out that she's the person being caught out, rorting parliamentary entitlements. And I think that's a terrible look for someone who wants to lead the parliamentary party.
Think the coalition federally survives?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the sanest, of course, voices on the whole thing is Peter Credlin, who has really, very, very astutely sort of dissected what went wrong. And I agree totally with her analysis from almost immediately after the election. And people shouldn't lose their heads about this. These sorts of things happen in politics. The thing is to get down, listen to what the voters have said, recap, lick your wounds, come up with, what really needs to happen is they need to go back to the values of the Liberal Party. What are those values? And it's small government, private enterprise, the primacy of the family. Out of that must come a vision for Australia and then a, completely coherent plan. And out of that drops policies and announceables in an election campaign. But they need to get back to that, agree that, have the plan and get on and start to sell it over the coming years.